My beloved child, stop scrolling for just one moment, because what is waiting for you in this message is not ordinary. Something has shifted in the unseen, something has awakened inside the heart of the person connected to you, and heaven is asking you to remain here long enough to understand why the silence around you has suddenly become so heavy. You may not see movement yet. You may not have received the words you have been hoping for. You may even believe that nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, a decision is forming, and your soulmate is about to do something you never expected. Pause here and breathe slowly, because the next part of this message may explain the strange feeling you have carried recently. That unexplained pressure in your chest. That sudden memory of them appearing when you were trying to focus on something else. That sense that someone was thinking about you at the exact moment you looked at the time. You were not imagining the emotional shift. Their soul has been wrestling with a truth their mind could no longer avoid, and the conclusion they reached has left even them surprised. For a long time, they tried to convince themselves that they could remain where they were. They told themselves they could keep their emotions controlled, continue with their routine, and act as though your presence had not changed them. They believed time would make the connection quieter. They thought distance would make the memories less powerful. They assumed that if they stayed busy enough, they could silence the part of their heart that kept returning to you. But it did not happen. Instead, the silence made your absence louder. The more they tried not to think about you, the more clearly they remembered the smallest details. Your expressions. The way your energy changed when you were hiding pain. The way your voice carried strength even when you felt uncertain. The way you offered care without asking for recognition. These details began returning to them at unexpected moments, and each memory carried a question they could no longer escape: what if this connection was never meant to be forgotten? Do not move away from this message yet, because something greater is unfolding behind that question. Your soulmate did not merely begin missing you. Missing you was only the first layer. What truly changed everything was the moment they realized that their future felt incomplete whenever they imagined it without you. This realization did not arrive dramatically at first. It began quietly. Perhaps they were sitting alone after a long day. Perhaps they were surrounded by people but felt strangely disconnected. Perhaps someone mentioned love, commitment, home, or the future, and your face immediately appeared in their mind. They tried to push the thought away, but the feeling remained. Then another thought followed it. And another. Until suddenly they were no longer remembering only the past. They were imagining what life could still become. That is where the unexpected decision began. They pictured speaking to you without hiding. They imagined looking into your eyes and finally saying the words they had repeatedly swallowed. They imagined what it would feel like to stop pretending that this connection meant less than it did. And for the first time, fear did not completely control the vision. Something stronger began rising within them. Courage. Not perfect courage. Not a complete absence of doubt. But enough courage to consider an action they once believed they would never take. You need to understand this, beloved child. Your soulmate has been divided between what they feel and what they fear. Their feelings have always pulled them toward truth, but fear kept creating delays. Fear of rejection. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that too much time had passed. Fear that you had changed your heart. Fear that they had already damaged the connection beyond repair. They carried these fears in silence because speaking them would have required vulnerability. And vulnerability is exactly what they had spent so long avoiding. But now something has happened. A moment came when the pain of remaining silent became greater than the fear of speaking. Stay with this message, because what followed that moment was powerful. Your soulmate began looking at everything differently. They started questioning the advice they had accepted from others. They began reconsidering the assumptions they had made about you. They looked back at certain conversations and realized they may have misunderstood your intentions. They remembered moments when you were not pulling away because you did not care, but because you were protecting a heart that had already endured too much uncertainty. That realization humbled them. They saw that while they were waiting for absolute reassurance, you were waiting for honesty. While they were searching for signs that you would never leave, you were searching for evidence that they were willing to stay. While they were afraid to risk their pride, you were quietly carrying the weight of unanswered questions. This is not being revealed to make you feel superior. It is being revealed so you understand why their next action will come from a different place than before. Something inside them has softened. Something defensive has fallen away. They are beginning to see you not through the lens of their fear, but through the clarity of what you truly meant to them. And that clarity has become impossible to ignore. There was a recent moment when someone said something to them about relationships. It may have been a friend, a relative, or even a passing conversation they did not expect to affect them. The person may not have known your full story. They may not have even mentioned you directly. But they spoke about how rare it is to find someone who makes you feel understood, challenged, peaceful, and emotionally alive at the same time. Your soulmate became quiet. Because they knew exactly who came to mind. You. The conversation moved forward, but internally, they remained in that moment. They began asking themselves why they had been treating something rare as though it were easily replaceable. They wondered why they had allowed confusion, hesitation, or outside voices to become louder than the connection itself. And then a thought struck them with such force that it changed the emotional direction of everything. What if someone else recognizes your value while they are still hesitating? That thought awakened urgency. Not possessiveness. Not fear in a dark sense. But the realization that opportunities do not remain open forever. They understood that your heart deserves certainty. They understood that you cannot be expected to wait endlessly while they decide whether to honor what they already know. My child, this is where the story becomes more surprising, because their unexpected action is not simply about sending a casual message. It is not about appearing briefly and disappearing again. They are considering something that requires them to step beyond the version of themselves you have known. They are preparing to reveal intention. For so long, you may have wondered whether their feelings were real or temporary. You may have questioned whether you mattered as deeply to them as they mattered to you. Their inconsistency may have made you doubt your own intuition. But the truth is that their inconsistency did not always come from a lack of feeling. Often, it came from the intensity of what they felt and their inability to manage it with maturity. That does not erase the confusion you experienced. It does not excuse every silence or delay. But it explains why this connection continued to return, even when both of you tried to create distance. Something unfinished remained. And now they feel compelled to face it. Do not skip this moment, because there is a detail you need to hear. Your soulmate has been rehearsing a conversation in their mind. They have imagined several versions of it. In one version, they speak confidently. In another, their voice shakes. In another, they begin with something simple because they are afraid of revealing too much too quickly. But every version leads to the same confession: they do not want to continue living as though losing you would not affect them. They know it would. It already has. There have been moments when they smiled around others while carrying a private emptiness. There have been nights when they reached for distraction but found themselves returning to your memory. There have been times when they almost contacted you, then stopped, not because they had nothing to say, but because they had too much to say and did not know where to begin. Now they are realizing they may never find the perfect beginning. So they are preparing to begin imperfectly. This is significant, beloved child, because your soulmate has often waited for perfect circumstances. They wanted certainty before taking a risk. They wanted a guarantee before opening their heart. They wanted to know your response before offering their truth. But real love does not provide that kind of guarantee. It asks for courage before the outcome is known. And courage is what heaven has been developing within them. While you were learning not to abandon yourself for love, they were learning that love cannot survive where truth is continually postponed. While you were being taught patience with boundaries, they were being taught urgency with sincerity. While you were rebuilding your sense of worth, they were being confronted with the consequences of not valuing what was standing before them. Both journeys have been necessary. Yet there is another layer to this revelation. Your soulmate recently discovered something about you that they did not fully understand before. They realized that your strength was never evidence that you did not need care. Your independence was never proof that you did not desire partnership. Your silence was never confirmation that you had stopped feeling. You learned to carry yourself because circumstances required it, but deep inside, you still hoped someone would recognize the heart behind the strength. They are beginning to recognize it now. They see that you were not asking for perfection. You were asking for consistency. You were not demanding grand promises. You were hoping for honesty. You did not need them to arrive with every answer. You needed them to arrive with genuine intention. And genuine intention is exactly what they are now considering how to show. Something huge is waiting inside this change, but you must not rush ahead emotionally. Heaven is not revealing this so you can chase, force, or predict the exact moment. You are being shown this so you remain grounded when unexpected movement appears. Because it may not arrive in the form you imagined. You expected perhaps a simple apology. They are thinking about a deeper acknowledgement. You expected perhaps a short conversation. They are considering a decision that could change the direction of the connection. You expected them to remain guarded. They are preparing to become emotionally visible. And that visibility frightens them, because once they speak honestly, they will no longer be able to hide behind uncertainty. They will have to accept whatever truth follows. Yet even with that fear, they are moving closer to action. There is a reason this shift is happening now. Recently, your soulmate experienced a moment that made time feel more real to them. It may have been seeing someone else take a bold step in love. It may have been hearing about a missed opportunity. It may have been witnessing a relationship end because the truth was spoken too late. Whatever the outer circumstance was, it reflected their own situation back to them. They saw the danger of endless hesitation. They understood that silence also makes decisions. Every day they avoided speaking, they were still choosing something. They were choosing distance. They were choosing uncertainty. They were allowing you to believe perhaps you did not matter enough for them to try. That realization hurt them more deeply than they expected. They do not want that to be the story you carry about them. They do not want you to remember them only as the person who felt deeply but acted too late. They do not want fear to become the final author of your connection. They want the chance to show you a side of themselves that has remained hidden beneath pride, confusion, and emotional caution. Stay until the end of this part, because the hidden side of them is connected to the action you never expected. Your soulmate has been thinking beyond one conversation. They have been thinking about what would happen after the conversation. They are asking themselves difficult questions. If you allowed them back into your emotional world, could they be consistent? Could they communicate when fear rises instead of disappearing? Could they protect the connection from outside opinions? Could they become someone whose actions finally match their feelings? These questions have not pushed them away. They have made them more serious. This is important, because before, they may have focused only on whether you still cared. Now they are focusing on whether they are prepared to care for the connection properly. That is a much deeper transformation. They are no longer only wondering, will you accept me? They are beginning to ask, can I become worthy of the trust one am asking for? That question has taken them into places within themselves they avoided for a long time. They are confronting patterns. They are noticing where pride caused distance. They are seeing where fear disguised itself as logic. They are realizing that some of the reasons they gave themselves for staying silent were not reasons at all. They were protections. But protection became isolation. And isolation became regret. Your soulmate has reached a point where regret is no longer comfortable enough to live with. You may notice signs of this shift before the main action occurs. Their energy may feel closer. You may dream of them more vividly. A song, memory, name, or familiar place may suddenly appear repeatedly. These experiences should not become something you obsess over. Let them simply remind you that emotional processes often begin invisibly before they become visible. The most important thing is not to lose yourself while waiting for someone else to find courage. Heaven has been strengthening you for this exact reason. The version of you entering this next chapter is not the same version who once accepted confusion as love. You now understand that a connection can feel spiritual and still require healthy action. You understand that deep feelings must eventually become honest choices. This is why your soulmate's action will surprise you. They are not only preparing to tell you that they care. They are preparing to prove that the connection has changed them. The proof may come through an invitation, a request to meet, a heartfelt letter, a conversation with someone important, or a step toward removing an obstacle that has stood between you. The exact form remains hidden because your role is not to control it. Your role is to recognize whether sincerity is present when it arrives. And sincerity will feel different from temporary emotion. Temporary emotion makes dramatic promises and disappears when discomfort begins. Sincerity remains present after the vulnerable moment has passed. Temporary emotion asks you to forget everything immediately. Sincerity accepts that trust may need to be rebuilt. Temporary emotion focuses only on desire. Sincerity takes responsibility. Your soulmate is beginning to understand this difference. They know words alone may not be enough. That realization is leading them toward a step that involves more than speaking. It involves rearranging something. Changing something. Closing a door they once kept open. Making space for a future they were once afraid to imagine. Do not skip now, because this is where the unseen preparation becomes deeply personal. Your soulmate has been holding on to something symbolic of you. It may be a message, a photograph, a gift, a memory attached to a particular place, or even a sentence you once said that stayed with them. Recently, they returned to it. They did not return to it casually. They returned because they needed clarity. And when they did, they felt the emotional truth of the connection with a force they were not prepared for. They remembered who they were when you were close. They remembered how deeply seen they felt, even when your connection was complicated. They remembered that you noticed things others overlooked. You could sense when their smile was covering pressure. You could hear when their voice changed. You understood their silence even when you did not approve of it. That level of recognition is rare. And now they know it. They have met other people. They have spoken to others. They may have tried to convince themselves that another connection would be simpler. But simple did not mean meaningful. Easy did not mean true. Familiarity with someone else did not reproduce the depth they experienced with you. This does not mean you should compare yourself to anyone. Your value does not depend on being chosen over another person. The revelation is that your soulmate has finally stopped trying to measure your connection through comparison. They are seeing it as its own truth. And once that truth became clear, they made a private decision. They have not announced it yet. They may not have told anyone the full details. They may still be arranging how and when to act. But inwardly, a choice has already been made. They will not continue pretending that this connection can remain unresolved forever. This private decision is the beginning of the unexpected action. But before they act, one final fear has risen. They are afraid that when they come forward, you will see them as too late. They fear you will remember every unanswered message, every confusing moment, every time they allowed distance to speak louder than love. They fear that you have reached a place of peace without them and that their return may disturb what you worked hard to rebuild. This fear has nearly stopped them more than once. Yet something within them keeps saying, "Tell the truth anyway." Because honesty is not only about receiving the outcome you desire. It is about refusing to let fear keep controlling the story. Your soulmate is learning this now. They may not arrive with polished words. They may stumble. They may begin indirectly. They may test the emotional atmosphere before revealing everything. But beneath the hesitation will be a truth far stronger than you expected. They have not been planning how to leave you behind. They have been planning how to approach you differently. That is the part you could not see. While you thought their silence meant they had moved on, they were confronting the possibility that moving on without facing the truth would only carry the same regret into another chapter. While you wondered whether they had forgotten, they were remembering more than they admitted. While you questioned whether the connection mattered, they were reaching the point where denying its importance became impossible. Something extraordinary is waiting for you in what happens next, but your heart must remain discerning. Not closed. Not desperate. Discernment means allowing actions to confirm words. It means listening without abandoning your boundaries. It means remaining compassionate without forgetting what your soul learned through the silence. You are not being prepared to repeat the past. You are being prepared to respond differently if the future knocks. And it will not knock in the way you expect. There is a specific step your soulmate has been considering, something they once told themselves they would never do. It requires them to put pride aside. It requires them to risk being emotionally exposed. It may even require them to speak to someone else before coming directly to you. They have been thinking about seeking help. Not because they are weak, but because they realize they may not know how to repair what fear damaged. They may speak with a trusted person, someone mature enough to challenge their excuses. They may ask how to apologize without manipulating. They may ask how to show intention without pressuring you. This is new for them. Before, they may have relied only on their own judgment, even when their judgment was shaped by anxiety. Now they are willing to admit that their old approach did not create the outcome they wanted. Humility is entering the story. And humility changes what pride keeps frozen. My beloved child, there is also something they are preparing to admit that they have never told you. It is connected to a moment from the past, a moment you interpreted one way while they experienced it very differently. You thought perhaps they did not care. You thought perhaps your presence made no difference. But the truth is that moment affected them so deeply that they became afraid of how much power the connection had over their emotions. Instead of moving closer, they withdrew. Instead of explaining, they became quieter. Instead of saying, "This matters to me," they acted as though it did not. That contradiction caused pain for both of you. Now they want to tell you what was truly happening inside them. They want to reveal what they felt on the day everything seemed to change. They want to explain why they made a choice that confused you. They want you to know that their distance was not the whole truth. But there is more. The action they are preparing may involve an object, a place, or a promise connected to your future. They have been looking at something that represents commitment. Not necessarily in the way your mind may immediately imagine, but in a way that signals seriousness. They no longer want to approach you with empty emotion. They want to bring evidence that they have thought beyond the present moment. This could be a plan, a journey, a changed circumstance. a decision they have already begun putting into motion. Whatever it is, they understand that when they finally stand before you emotionally, they must be ready to answer the question they once avoided. What do you truly want? And this time, they intend to answer clearly. Stay here, because the final revelation of this part is the most important. Your soulmate's unexpected action is not beginning with contact. It began with sacrifice. They have decided that something must be released before they come toward you. A habit. An attachment. An excuse. A situation that kept them emotionally divided. They know they cannot ask you for a new beginning while holding tightly to what created the old confusion. So behind the scenes, they are preparing to close a chapter. You may not know what that chapter is yet. You may not know who or what is connected to it. But your soulmate has realized that as long as this door remains open, they cannot offer you the honesty they now desire to give. And this is where the story changes. Because the moment they close that door, another action will follow almost immediately, an action so direct, so vulnerable, and so unlike their former behavior that you may question whether it is truly happening. They have already chosen the words they want to say first. They have already imagined where they want the conversation to lead. And they have already decided what they are willing to risk. But just as they were preparing to take the final step, someone discovered what they were planning, and what that person said may either delay everything, or push your soulmate to act sooner than anyone expected.